The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched far above Ambassador Dongwu's head. The ceiling disappeared into darkness, while bright lights focused on the speaking platform where he stood. Around him, 3 different alien species sat in, their massive chairs looking down at the single human representative. Dongwu adjusted his dark blue uniform and cleared his throat. The sound echoed in the vast chamber. He had practiced this speech many times during the long journey from Earth. Today would decide humanity's future among the stars. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," he began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "I come before you as the representative of Earth and all humanity. We seek recognition as a sovereign species and fair trade agreements with your great civilizations." A low rumbling sound filled the chamber. It took Dongwu a moment to realize what he was hearing. Laughter. The aliens were laughing at him. Commander Tae-young of the Vaxtari shifted in his chair. His gray skin gleamed under the lights, and his 4 arms moved in what Dongwu had learned was amusement. The Vaxtari were warriors, and their ships ruled much of the galaxy's military power. "Sovereign species," Tae-young's voice boomed through translation devices. "Your entire fleet could not defeat one of our patrol groups." Chancellor Zinkor of the Quillari made a chittering sound that the translators rendered as laughter. Her insect-like body was covered in shimmering purple chitin, and her compound eyes reflected the chamber's lights. The Quillari controlled most of the galaxy's trade routes and manufacturing. "Fair trade?" she clicked. "What does humanity produce that we could possibly need? Your technology is primitive. Your manufacturing is crude. You have been in space for what? 200 of your years? We have ruled the stars for thousands." High Technician Velmars of the Nethrians remained silent, but his pale blue face showed clear amusement. The Nethrians had developed most of the galaxy's advanced technology. Their ships could travel between stars in days, while human vessels took months. Their cities floated in space, powered by energy sources humanity barely understood. Dongwu felt heat rise in his cheeks, but he kept his expression calm. He had expected this reaction. Back on Earth, the analysts had warned him that the Council would not take humanity seriously. Humans were newcomers to space, barely crawling from their home system, while these species had built empires spanning thousands of worlds. "We understand that humanity is young compared to your civilizations," Dongwu said. "But we have proven ourselves capable of space travel, colonization, and peaceful contact. We ask only for the chance to grow alongside you as equals." This brought fresh waves of laughter from all 3 species. Tae-young leaned forward in his chair. "Equals? Little human, your largest warship carries weapons that could barely scratch the paint on our cargo vessels. Your colonies number in the dozens while we control thousands of worlds each." Zinkor's chittering grew louder. "Your entire planet's manufacturing output for a year equals what one of our factory worlds produces in a week. You speak of equality, but you are infants playing with toys." Velmars finally spoke, his voice cold and precise. "Your computer systems run on silicon chips. We abandoned such primitive technology before your species learned to make fire. Your fusion reactors are amusing museum pieces compared to our energy sources." Dongwu listened to their words, filing away each detail. The Council was showing their hand, revealing their strengths while dismissing humanity's potential. This was valuable information, even if it came wrapped in insults. "Nevertheless," he said, "we request consideration of our proposal." The 3 aliens exchanged glances. They seemed to be communicating through methods beyond human understanding, perhaps through technology or natural abilities humans lacked. After a long moment, Chancellor Zinkor spoke. "Very well, little human. We will make you an offer. Your species has 2 choices." Her compound eyes fixed on Dongwu. "First, you may continue your current path. We will ignore you until you inevitably destroy yourselves through war, pollution, or simple incompetence. Most young species choose this option. Tae Young took over the explanation. Second, you may accept our protection. Humanity will become a protectorate species under Council authority. You will surrender all claims to independent colonization beyond your current settlements. You will provide 60% of Earth's population to serve as workers throughout Council space. In return, Velmars added, we will protect Earth from external threats and provide you with basic technologies to improve your primitive existence. Food production methods, simple medical techniques, communication systems that actually work reliably. Dongwu felt his hands clench into fists, but he kept them at his sides. 60% of our population? That would be over 4 billion people. Indeed, Zincor clicked. Do not worry. They will be well treated. We are not cruel masters. Your people will have food, shelter, and meaningful work. Many species have found great satisfaction in service to the Council. And if we refuse both options? Dongwu asked. The chamber fell silent. The three aliens stared down at him with expressions that needed no translation. Finally, Tae Young spoke. No species has been foolish enough to refuse our generous offer and continue to expand into Council space. We cannot allow an unprotected species to interfere with galactic stability. Surely you understand this? Dongwu nodded slowly. The threat was clear. Accept slavery or face destruction. He had hoped for better, but Earth's leaders had prepared him for this possibility too. I must consult with my government before making such an important decision, he said. Of course, Velmars replied. We are not unreasonable. You have 30 standard galactic days to consider our offer. Use this time wisely. Chancellor Zincor leaned back in her chair. We suggest you spend these days convincing your leaders to see reason. The protection of the Council is a gift that few species receive. Do not throw it away out of pride. Tae Young gestured with one of his 4 arms. Your ship will be escorted back to Earth. Our patrol vessels will remain in your system to ensure your safety during this decision period. Dongwu bowed slightly. Thank you for your consideration. I will carry your offer to Earth immediately. As he turned to leave the Great Hall, the sound of alien laughter followed him. They found humanity's situation amusing. A primitive species, with delusions of independence, about to learn their place in the galactic order. The escort ships surrounded Dongwu's vessel as it left the Council station. Sleek Vaxtari warships that could reduce Earth's entire fleet to debris in minutes. They were a reminder of the Council's power and humanity's weakness. During the long journey home, Dongwu recorded his observations. The Council's dismissive attitude revealed important information about their thinking. They saw humanity as helpless, primitive, and completely predictable. That might prove to be their mistake. As Earth grew larger in his ship's viewport, Dongwu allowed himself a small smile. The Council thought they knew everything about human capabilities. They were about to learn otherwise. The emergency session of the United Earth Government took place in the secure chambers beneath Geneva. Secretary General Jin Ho sat at the head of the long table, his face grave as he listened to Ambassador Dongwu's report. Around the table, the most powerful leaders of humanity absorbed every word. 60% of our population, Admiral So Young repeated, her voice tight with controlled anger. The head of Earth's defense force had spent her career preparing for external threats, but this was beyond anything she had imagined. 4 billion people as workers for alien empires. Dr. Kyung-soo, the elderly head of xenological studies, adjusted his glasses. The terminology is important. They didn't say slaves, but the meaning is clear. Forced labor under alien control, with no possibility of return to Earth. Dongwu nodded grimly. They seemed to think they were being generous. Several times they mentioned that other species had found satisfaction in service to the Council. What about our military capabilities? Asked Captain Yunji, who commanded the exploration vessel New Horizon. Did they seem worried about our defenses at all? Admiral So Young shook her head. According to our intelligence reports, a single Council patrol group could destroy our entire fleet. They have energy weapons we can barely understand, ships that move faster than anything we've built, and shields that could stop our most powerful missiles. The room fell silent. Everyone present understood the mathematics of the situation. Earth's space fleet consisted of 47 vessels, from tiny survey ships to the massive battlecruiser Sol. Against the Council's thousands of ships, humanity would last perhaps an hour in open combat. Jin Ho activated the room's main screen, showing Dongwu's recording of the Council session. The sound of alien laughter filled the chamber. Every human leader present watched their species being dismissed as primitive children playing with toys. They think we're helpless, Jin Ho said quietly. Completely dependent on their mercy. Dr. Min Seo, the quantum physicist, leaned forward. Are we? Helpless, I mean? She was young for such an important position, but her work on exotic energy sources had earned her a place at this table. Militarily, yes, Admiral So Young admitted. Economically, probably. Technologically, certainly. In every conventional measure, we're centuries behind them. Conventional measures, repeated Professor Jae-won, who specialized in exotic matter research. But what about unconventional ones? Captain Yunji looked up from her tablet. What do you mean? Professor Jae-won and Dr. Min Seo exchanged glances. They had been working together on theoretical projects that most people considered impossible. Show them, Dr. Min Seo said. Professor Jae-won activated his portable display. Complex equations filled the air above the table, rendered in three-dimensional light. For the past 5 years, Dr. Min Seo and I have been working on stellar engineering theory. The artificial manipulation of stellar processes. Admiral So Young frowned. You mean like making artificial suns? Exactly like that, Dr. Min Seo said. The theory is sound. With the right exotic matter configurations and quantum field manipulation, it's possible to trigger fusion ignition in stellar masses that would normally be too small or too cold to sustain fusion naturally. Captain Yunji set down her tablet. That's theoretical. No one has actually done it. No one has tried, Professor Jae-won corrected. The Council species have never needed to. They have access to countless natural stars and the energy they provide. But humans have always been good at finding new ways to do impossible things. Jin Ho studied the equations floating above the table. What would this require? Hypothetically, Dr. Min Seo pulled up new displays. Exotic matter, which we already produce in small quantities for our experimental drives. Quantum field generators, which are modifications of our existing fusion reactor technology. And a stellar mass to work with. How much exotic matter? Asked Dr. Kyung-soo. About 50 kilograms of refined exotic matter. We currently produce about 2 kilograms per month across all our facilities. Admiral So Young did quick calculations. That's 2 years of production, and we'd need all our facilities working on this instead of maintaining our current ships. Actually, Captain Yunji said slowly, we might have a shortcut. She pulled up star charts on her display. My ship discovered something in the outer system last month. We were conducting a survey of the Kuiper Belt when we found an unusual object. The star chart showed the solar system's edge, far beyond Pluto's orbit. A small red dot marked the location of Captain Yunji's discovery. It's a brown dwarf, she explained. A failed star that never gained enough mass to ignite fusion. It's been drifting in our outer system for billions of years. Our initial scans suggest it has exactly the right composition for artificial ignition. Professor Jae-won stared at the display. How much mass? About 13 times Jupiter's mass, right at the theoretical minimum for sustained fusion if properly triggered. Dr. Min Seo was already running calculations on her tablet. That could work, The quantum field requirements would be much lower than we estimated. We might be able to do it with 30 kilograms of exotic matter instead of 50. 15 months of production, Admiral So Young murmured. Still a massive commitment. Jin Ho stood and walked to the window overlooking Lake Geneva. Outside, normal life continued. People had no idea that their species faced extinction or slavery within 30 days. What would artificial stellar ignition accomplish? He asked, without turning around. Everything, Dr. Mincio said simply. Unlimited energy. The ability to make dead worlds habitable. Proof that humanity can do things the Council considers impossible. Captain Yunji nodded. More than that. If we can create stars, we can threaten to destroy them too. Even the Council would have to respect that kind of power. You're talking about building a weapon of unimaginable destruction, Dr. Kyung-soo said quietly. No, Professor Jae-won shook his head. We're talking about building something better. A demonstration that humanity deserves to be treated as equals, not slaves. Jin-ho turned back to the table. How long would this take? We have 30 days. Impossible in 30 days, Dr. Minseo said immediately. But we don't need to complete it in 30 days. We just need to make them believe we're considering their offer while we work. Ambassador Dongwu spoke for the first time since giving his report. I can delay them. Request clarifications, ask for detailed terms, negotiate small points. Bureaucracy is universal, apparently. Even alien empires have procedures. Admiral So Young looked around the table. This is insane. We're talking about betting our entire species on an untested theory. As opposed to betting our species on alien mercy, Jin-ho asked. Which do you think is more reliable? The room fell silent again. Everyone present understood the choice. Accept slavery, face destruction, or attempt, something that might be impossible. Captain Yunji broke the silence. My ship can reach the brown dwarf in 3 weeks. If we're going to do this, we need to start now. Jin-ho looked at each person around the table. All in favor of Project Prometheus? One by one, hands rose around the table. Dr. Minseo, Professor Jae-won, Captain Yunji, Admiral So Young, Dr. Kyung-soo, Ambassador Dongwu. Finally, Jin-ho raised his own hand. Then we're committed, he said. Dr. Minseo, Professor Jae-won, you're in charge of the technical aspects. Admiral So Young, coordinate with all our manufacturing facilities. Captain Yunji, take whatever equipment you need to survey the target. He paused, looking around the table one more time. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to show the galaxy that humans are not helpless children playing with toys. Let's light a fire they'll see from across the stars. As the meeting broke up, each leader departed with their impossible assignments. They had 29 days to accomplish something that had never been done before. Failure meant the end of human independence forever. But as Dr. Minseo gathered her equipment and Professor Jae-won made calls to research facilities around the world, they felt something the Council had not expected from a primitive species: hope. 2 weeks had passed since the emergency meeting in Geneva. Earth hummed with secret activity as humanity raced against time. In facilities scattered across the planet and throughout the solar system, thousands of people worked on Project Prometheus, without knowing what they were building. Commander Tae-young's battle group arrived in Earth's solar system like a storm cloud. 12 Vaxtari warships took positions around the outer planets, their weapons pointed toward the inner system. Each ship was larger than Earth's biggest space station, bristling with energy cannons that could crack continents. On the lunar command center, Admiral So Young watched the alien ships through telescopic displays. The Vaxtari vessels moved with casual arrogance, making no attempt to hide their overwhelming firepower. Their message was clear: 30 days was almost over, and humanity had nowhere to run. Status report, Admiral So Young said to her staff. Captain Dong Hyun, commanding the Earth defense ship Incheon, appeared on the main screen. His ship patrolled near Mars, along with 8 other human vessels. All ships maintaining defensive positions. The Vaxtari are scanning us, but they don't seem worried. Commander HFY, leading the asteroid defense platforms, joined the communication. Our weapon systems are online, but Admiral, you know as well as I do that we can't hurt those ships. Admiral So Young nodded grimly. I know, but we need to look like we're preparing to fight. It sells the deception. The deception was crucial. For 2 weeks, Earth's communications had been full of heated arguments about the Council's offer. Public broadcasts showed protests in major cities, with some groups demanding acceptance of the Council's protection and others calling for resistance. The aliens monitoring human communications would see exactly what they expected: a divided, frightened species tearing itself apart under pressure. What they couldn't see was the truth. The protests were carefully staged, the arguments deliberately broadcast on channels the aliens were monitoring. While the galaxy watched humanity appear to collapse into chaos, the real work happened in hidden facilities around the solar system. Admiral So Young switched to a secure channel that used quantum encryption the aliens couldn't break. Prometheus. Control! This is Lunar Command. Status update. Dr. Minsio's voice came through clearly from the secret facility beneath the Australian desert. Field generators are 90% complete. We've had some problems with the exotic matter containment, but Professor J1 thinks he's solved them. Captain Yunji, report. The explorer's voice carried excitement despite the exhaustion in her tone. New Horizon reached the target 3 days ago. The brown dwarf is perfect for our needs. We're positioning the field generator array now. Give us another week and we'll be ready. Another voice joined the channel. This is Engineer Wu Jin at Ceres Station. The exotic matter shipment launched yesterday. It should reach Captain Yunji's position in 4 days. Admiral So Young felt a moment of hope. Everything was coming together, but would it be enough? What about the Council? She asked. Any word from Ambassador Dong Wu? Secretary General Jin Ho's voice answered from Earth. He's doing his job. The Council thinks he's stalling while our government argues about surrender terms. Commander, Tae Young actually complimented him on his realistic assessment of human limitations. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. While the Vaxtari commander praised humanity's apparent acceptance of weakness, human engineers were preparing to demonstrate power beyond anything the Council had imagined. Captain Yuna, commanding the mining vessel Busan, broke into the conversation. I'm tracking unusual Council ship movements. 3 Quillari vessels just jumped into the system. They're taking positions near the asteroid belt. Admiral So Young frowned. Any idea what they want? Probably ensuring we don't try to flee with our mining ships, Commander HFY suggested. They want to make sure all of humanity stays put for the final surrender. Secretary General Jin Ho's voice carried dark amusement. They're being very thorough. Chancellor Zincor sent a message today offering to help Earth's government maintain order during the transition period. Generous of her, Admiral So Young said dryly. What did you tell her? That we're grateful for the Council's patience while we convince our more stubborn populations to see reason. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent signal from Captain Yunji. All stations, we have a problem. A Nethrian science vessel just appeared at our location. Admiral So Young felt her heart skip. Are you compromised? Unknown. The ship is maintaining distance, but they're definitely scanning the brown dwarf. If they detect our equipment, Dr. Minsio's voice was tense. Can you abort the mission? Not without losing everything. We're too far along. The field generators are already in position around the dwarf. Moving them now would take days we don't have. Professor J1 spoke up from his laboratory on Europa. What's the Nethrian ship doing exactly? Standard scientific survey, as far as I can tell. They seem interested in the brown dwarf itself, not our equipment. Maybe they're just curious about stellar objects in human space. Admiral So Young made a quick decision. Continue the mission. If they detect you, improvise. Tell them you're conducting scientific research on failed stellar ignition. That's actually not far from the truth, Captain Yunji replied with nervous humor. The next few days passed in tense preparation. The Nethrian science vessel continued its survey of the brown dwarf, apparently oblivious to the human equipment hidden among the natural debris surrounding the failed star. Captain Yunji's crew worked carefully, installing the final components of their stellar ignition system while avoiding detection. On Earth, the staged political chaos grew more convincing. Protesters marched through capital cities, demanding either immediate surrender or hopeless resistance. The media broadcast heated debates between leaders who privately coordinated every word. Ambassador Dongwu sent increasingly desperate messages to the council, begging for more time to convince Earth's divided government. Commander Tae-young responded to these messages with growing impatience. "Your species has had adequate time for discussion," he transmitted to Earth. "The Council's generosity has limits." Secretary General Jin Ho personally replied to this message, his performance a masterpiece of apparent desperation. "Commander, please understand our situation. Some of our people still believe in impossible solutions. They speak of secret weapons and miraculous technologies that don't exist. I'm trying to bring them back to reality, but it takes time." "What sort of impossible solutions?" Commander Tae-young asked, his curiosity evident. Jin-ho's reply was carefully crafted to sound like the fantasies of a defeated leader. "Stellar engineering, artificial energy sources, weapons beyond our current technology. You understand how desperate populations grasp at impossible hopes." The Vaxtari commander's response carried clear amusement. "Indeed, many primitive species invent magical solutions when faced with superior force. Your realism is refreshing, Secretary General. Continue your efforts to educate your people." Admiral So-young listened to this exchange with satisfaction. The Council was so convinced of human inferiority that they dismissed humanity's actual capabilities as impossible fantasies. Commander Tae-young had been told exactly what Project Prometheus was, and he had laughed it off as delusional thinking. 3. Days before the deadline, Captain Yunji sent the message everyone was waiting for. "Prometheus Control, this is New Horizon. All systems are installed and tested. We are ready for ignition on your command." The Nethrian science vessel had finally departed, its survey complete. The aliens had scanned the brown dwarf thoroughly, cataloged its properties, and left without detecting the human equipment that would soon transform it into a star. Admiral So-young looked out at Earth below, then at the displays showing Council ships throughout the solar system. Soon those ships would witness something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. "All stations, this is Lunar Command." She broadcast on the secure channel. "Project Prometheus is approved for final phase. Execute on Secretary General Jin Ho's signal." Across the solar system, humans held their breath. 27 days ago, they had been a primitive species facing extinction. In 72 hours, they would offer the galaxy a new option: negotiate with equals or face the consequences of underestimating humanity. The council chambers looked exactly the same as they had 30 days ago, but Ambassador Dongwu felt the weight of what was about to happen. He stood once again on the speaking platform, facing the 3 alien species that controlled the galaxy. This time, however, he was not a desperate representative begging for mercy. Commander Tae-young leaned forward in his massive chair. "Ambassador Dongwu, your time has expired. We assume you bring word of your government's acceptance of our generous offer." Chancellor Zinkor's compound eyes fixed on the human representative. "Our ships report that your people have maintained order during this difficult period. We are pleased by your leader's wisdom in accepting reality." High Technician Velmars nodded approvingly. "The transition will be managed efficiently. We have prepared facilities for your population throughout Council space. Many of your people will find useful work immediately." Dongwu bowed slightly. "Honored Council members, I thank you for your patience during our decision period. Before I deliver, My government's response, we would like to present a gift. The three aliens exchanged glances. This was unexpected. Commander Tae-young gestured with one of his four arms. A gift? How interesting. What could your primitive species possibly offer the Council? A demonstration, Dong-Wu replied calmly. My government wishes to show our gratitude for your generous offer and our desire for peaceful cooperation. We believe actions speak louder than words. Chancellor Zinkor chittered with amusement. Very well. We are curious to see what humanity considers a suitable gift for their new protectors. High Technician Velmars activated the chamber's display systems. Show us this demonstration. Dong-Wu activated his personal communicator, sending a coded signal across space to Secretary General Jin-Ho on Earth. The message was simple. Execute Prometheus. On Earth, Jin-Ho received the signal in his secure command center. Around him, the most important leaders of humanity watched displays showing the council chambers and the brown dwarf in their outer system. Captain Yun-ji's ship, New Horizon, held position near the failed star while her crew made final preparations. Dr. Minseo, Professor Jae-won, are we ready? Jin-Ho asked. Both scientists nodded from their control stations. All systems green, Dr. Minseo reported. Exotic matter containment stable, quantum field generators online. Professor Jae-won checked his instruments one final time. Field alignment perfect. We're as ready as we'll ever be. Jin-Ho took a deep breath. Everything humanity had worked. For in the past month came down to this moment. Captain Yunji, initiate stellar ignition sequence. In the outer solar system, Captain Yunji received the order with steady hands. Around the brown dwarf, 6 field generators hummed to life, each one powered by exotic matter that had taken Earth's entire production capacity to create. The generators created a quantum field network that began compressing the failed star's core, increasing pressure and temperature to levels that would trigger fusion. Back in the council chambers, Dong-Wu continued his presentation while the ignition sequence ran in the background. We humans have always been explorers, pushing boundaries that others thought impossible. Throughout our history, we have found new ways to overcome limitations. Commander Tae-young looked impatient. Yes. Human persistence is well documented. What is this demonstration you promised? Today we push the ultimate boundary, Dong-Wu said, his voice gaining strength. We demonstrate that even the newest species in the galaxy can contribute something meaningful. The chamber's displays suddenly lit up with incoming signals from across the galaxy. Astronomical monitoring stations belonging to all 3 council species detected massive energy readings from the edge of human space. The readings were impossible according to known physics. High Technician Velmars stared at his instruments in confusion. These readings cannot be correct. The sensors must be malfunctioning. Chancellor Zinkor's chittering grew urgent as she consulted her own devices. All our monitoring stations are reporting the same phenomenon. Something is happening in the human system. Commander Tae-young activated his military communication network. Battle Group 7, report your status immediately. The reply came from the Vaxtari ships positioned around Earth's system. Command, we are observing unprecedented energy signatures from the outer system. Spectral analysis suggests artificial stellar ignition. The 3 council members went silent. Dong-Wu allowed himself a small smile as the implications hit them. Impossible, High Technician Velmars whispered. Stellar engineering is purely theoretical. No one has ever achieved artificial ignition. On the chamber's main display, real-time feeds from the human system showed a new star blazing to life where none had existed before. The brown dwarf, cold and dead for billions of years, now burned with the fierce light of sustained fusion. Dong-Wu gestured to the display. Honored council members, I present humanity's gift to the galaxy. We have created a new star in the NGC 7423 system, providing light and energy to 17 previously uninhabitable worlds. Chancellor Zincor's voice was barely audible. How is this possible? Human ingenuity, Dongwu replied simply. While your species perfected the technologies you inherited from ancient civilizations, we learned to think differently. We found new solutions to old problems. Commander Tae-young was frantically consulting with his military advisors. The implications of artificial stellar ignition were staggering. Any species capable of creating stars could also destroy them. The military balance of the galaxy had just shifted dramatically. High Technician Velmars struggled to process what he was seeing. The energy requirements alone should be impossible for a species at your technological level. Should be? Yes, Dongwu agreed. But humans have a talent for making the impossible merely difficult. We've spent the past month perfecting our stellar engineering techniques. The truth was more complex, of course. Project Prometheus had pushed human science to its absolute limits. The exotic matter required had exhausted Earth's production capacity. The quantum field generators were barely stable. But the Council didn't need to know these details. What mattered was the demonstration of capability. Humanity had done something the Council considered impossible, using methods the aliens couldn't immediately understand or counter. Chancellor Zincor finally found her voice. What are your intentions with this technology? Dongwu's expression remained calm and diplomatic. Peace and cooperation, naturally. The 17 worlds around our new star represent living space for approximately 40 billion beings. We are prepared to offer settlement rights to any species willing to establish fair trade agreements with Earth. The chamber fell silent except for the humming of alien technology trying to analyze the impossible readings from human space. The three council members struggled to adjust to a universe where the primitive humans they had dismissed as helpless children could reshape the very stars. Commander Tae-young was the first to speak. You planned this from the beginning. We hoped it wouldn't be necessary, Dongwu replied honestly. We would have preferred simple recognition and fair treatment. But when that proved impossible, we developed alternatives. High Technician Velmars stared at the stellar ignition data flooding his systems. The technological implications: if humans can create stars, what else might you be capable of? We're still discovering that ourselves, Dongwu said with quiet confidence. This was our first successful test of large-scale stellar engineering. We have many other projects in development. The last statement was carefully calculated. It was technically true. Human scientists were always working on new projects, but it implied capabilities humanity didn't yet possess. The Council would now have to assume that stellar ignition was just the beginning of human technological advancement. Chancellor Zincor's compound eyes reflected the light from the displays showing humanity's artificial star. Your previous message mentioned this technology. We thought it was desperate fantasy. A natural assumption, Dongwu acknowledged. Most species we've encountered have trouble imagining solutions beyond their current understanding. Humans tend to think differently. Commander Tae-young realized that his battle group, positioned threateningly around Earth's system, was now completely irrelevant. What use were warships against a species that could create or destroy stars at will? What do you want from us? He asked, his voice stripped of its earlier arrogance. Dongwu smiled. For the first time since arriving at the council station, he felt like he was negotiating from a position of strength. The same thing we asked for 31 days ago: recognition as a sovereign species and fair trade agreements. The only difference is that now we're making the offer as equals. The silence in the council chambers stretched for long minutes. The three most powerful species in the galaxy stared at displays showing impossible energy readings from a star that had not existed an hour ago, where humans had been dismissed. As primitive children, now stood a species capable of wielding the fundamental forces of creation. High Technician Velmars was the first to break the silence. His pale blue fingers moved rapidly across his control interfaces, pulling up data from every Nethrian monitoring station in the galaxy. The spectral analysis confirmed sustained fusion. Core temperature approximately 15 million degrees. Hydrogen burning at stable rates. He looked up at Dongwu with something approaching awe. This is not an illusion or temporary phenomenon. You have created a genuine star. Chancellor Zincor's chittering filled the chamber, but this time it wasn't laughter. Her compound eyes reflected the data streams flowing across the displays. The energy requirements for this process, our calculations suggest it should require the power output of an entire star system. Your calculations assume conventional methods, Dongwu replied. Humans have developed some unconventional approaches to energy manipulation. Commander Tae-young finally found his voice. The military implications. He stopped, realizing the futility of completing that thought. How do you threaten a species that can create or destroy stars? Dongwu gestured to the displays showing the new star. Before you consider implications, perhaps you should understand our intentions. The 17 worlds orbiting our artificial star are all within the habitable zone. Initial surveys suggest at least 12 have the potential for terraforming. He activated his personal display, showing detailed planetary data. World designation Prometheus 4 has an oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere and liquid water oceans. Gravity is 0.9 Earth standard. It could support human-type life immediately. Chancellor Zincor leaned forward despite herself. You're offering these worlds to other species? To species willing to establish fair trade and diplomatic relationships with Earth, Dongwu confirmed. We believe the galaxy benefits when all civilizations can grow and prosper together. High Technician Velmars was still analyzing the stellar ignition data. The quantum field manipulation required for this process, it represents a completely new branch of physics. How long have you been developing this technology? Dongwu chose his words carefully. Human theoretical physics has been exploring stellar engineering concepts for several decades. We only recently achieved the practical capability to implement our theories. This was technically true, though it omitted the fact that recently meant 1 month ago, and achieved meant barely managed to make it work once. The Council didn't need to know that Project Prometheus had pushed human technology to its absolute limits. Commander Tae-young consulted with his military advisors through his communication implants. When he spoke again, his voice carried a very different tone than it had 30 days ago. Your demonstration has certainly clarified the situation. However, creating a single star does not necessarily indicate the ability to create many stars. True, Dongwu agreed readily. We are still learning the full extent of our capabilities. However, our initial success suggests that larger projects are feasible. He paused, letting that implication sink in. For instance, our scientists believe we could stabilize dying stars, extend their lifespans, or even restart stellar fusion in stars that have begun to fail. The 3 council members exchanged glances that needed no translation. Every spacefaring civilization depended on stellar energy. The ability to control stellar processes represented power beyond anything they had imagined. Chancellor Zincor spoke carefully. What would Earth require in exchange for consultation on such matters? Simple recognition of our sovereignty and fair trade agreements, Dongwu repeated. The same things we asked for originally. We're not seeking to dominate or control anyone. We just want to be treated as equals. High Technician Velmars was studying energy readings from the artificial star. The fusion process appears completely stable. No signs of instability or decay. How long do you estimate this star will continue burning? Our models suggest approximately 8 billion years, Dongwu replied. Roughly equivalent to a natural star of similar mass. The council members absorbed this information. Humanity had not just created a temporary demonstration. They had built something that would outlast civilizations. Commander Tae-young made a decision. I will need to consult with the full Vaxtari High Command before proceeding. This changes many things. Of course, Dongwu said graciously. We understand that such significant developments require careful consideration. Chancellor Zincor was already communicating with the Quillari Trade Authority. The economic implications of stellar engineering were staggering. The Quillari Council will also need time to evaluate new opportunities. High Technician Vel Mars seemed almost excited despite the circumstances. The Nethrian Science Directorate will want to study your methods. This represents the most significant scientific breakthrough in millennia. Dongwu nodded to each of them. Earth welcomes scientific cooperation with all Council species. We believe knowledge shared freely benefits everyone. As the formal session ended, the three aliens remained focused on their displays and communications. The universe had changed in the past hour, and they were scrambling to understand the new reality. Dongwu allowed himself a moment of satisfaction as he left the chamber. 31 days ago, he had stood in this same room while these same aliens laughed at humanity's pretensions. Today, they were competing for human attention and cooperation. The journey back to Earth gave him time to reflect on what had happened. Humanity had gambled everything on a single demonstration of impossible capability. The gamble had paid off. But now came the harder task of managing the consequences. His communication system activated as he entered Earth's space. Secretary General Jin Ho's voice carried exhaustion and relief in equal measure. Dongwu, please tell me it worked. Better than we hoped, Dongwu replied. The Council went from offering us slavery to requesting consultation agreements in the span of an hour. Any immediate threats? None. Commander Tae-young's battle group is maintaining position, but they're not taking any hostile actions. I think they're afraid to. Jin-ho's chuckle came through clearly. Afraid of us. There's something I never thought I'd hear. Dr. Minsio's voice joined the conversation from the Australian facility. The star is burning beautifully. All readings show perfect stability. We actually did it. Professor J. Wan added his report. From Europa. The exotic matter containment systems are holding. We can maintain the quantum field generators indefinitely. Captain Yun-ji transmitted from the New Horizon. The 17 worlds are even better than our initial surveys suggested. Prometheus 7 might be habitable for oxygen-breathing species with minimal terraforming. Admiral So-young's voice carried military precision. Council ship movements throughout the system are defensive rather than threatening. They're clearly reassessing their strategic position. As Earth grew larger in his viewport, Dongwu could see the lights of human cities, the orbital stations, the ships that had seemed so primitive compared to Council technology. Everything looked the same, but humanity's place in the galaxy had changed forever. The Council had found it funny when humans asked to be treated as equals. They had dismissed humanity as primitive children playing with toys. Now, those same aliens were requesting partnerships and cooperation agreements. Sometimes, Dongwu reflected, the best way to change the game was to prove you could play by completely different rules. 3 months had passed since the day humanity lit their artificial star. The galaxy looked very different now, and nowhere was this more apparent than in the former council chambers, now called the Alliance Assembly Hall. Secretary General Jin Ho reviewed the morning's reports from his office overlooking Lake Geneva. The stack of diplomatic requests, trade proposals, and scientific cooperation agreements grew larger each day. Species that had ignored humanity for centuries now competed for Earth's attention. Ambassador Dongwu entered the office carrying another batch of documents. The hegemony of worlds sent another delegation, he reported. They're offering exclusive mining rights to their outer systems in exchange for stellar stabilization services. Jin-ho shook his head in amazement. 6 months ago, we'd never heard of the hegemony of worlds. Now they're offering us entire star systems. It gets better, Dongwu said with a smile. The Confederacy of Free Traders is offering to establish humanity as their preferred logistics partner. They want us to build new stars along their major trade routes. The transformation had been rapid and complete. Within weeks of the Prometheus demonstration, the old council structure had collapsed. The Vaxtari military, once confident in their overwhelming superiority, now sought human consultation on strategic defense planning. The Quillari economic empire had pivoted to accommodate a species that could literally create new markets by building star systems. The Netherians, their technological supremacy shattered, desperately tried to understand the principles behind stellar engineering. Admiral So Young joined the meeting via holographic display from the new orbital command station above Earth. Behind her, construction crews worked on the first stellar engineering vessel, officially designated the Prometheus, but already known throughout human space as the Star Builder. "Construction is ahead of schedule," she reported. "Captain Dong Hyun will take command when it's complete next month. We'll have our first mobile stellar engineering platform." The ship represented a new class of vessel entirely. Unlike traditional warships designed for combat, the Prometheus was built to create and modify stars. Its quantum field generators could trigger fusion in brown dwarfs, stabilize dying stars, or even enhance the energy output of existing stellar bodies. Jin-Ho activated the wall display, showing a map of local galactic space. Red dots marked the locations of 17 new worlds around humanity's artificial star. Blue dots showed the locations of proposed stellar engineering projects requested by various alien species. "How many applications do we have now?" he asked. Dong Wu consulted his tablet. 47 formal requests for stellar engineering services. Everything from creating new stars for colonization to extending the lifespans of dying suns. The Trilateral Commerce Union wants us to build a star specifically positioned to optimize shipping routes between their 3 primary systems. And our response? We're accepting projects that promote galactic stability and peaceful cooperation. The Commerce Union proposal looks good. It would benefit multiple species and reduce resource conflicts in that region. The door chimed, and Dr. Mincio entered the office. She looked tired but satisfied, having spent the past months refining stellar engineering techniques. "I have an update on Project Prometheus 2, she announced. Jin-Ho gestured for her to continue. Project Prometheus II was humanity's next impossible goal, stable wormhole creation for instantaneous travel between star systems. "The theoretical framework is solid," Dr. Mincio reported. "Professor Jae Won believes we can create stable spatial distortions using modified versions of our stellar engineering technology. Instead of triggering fusion, we'd be folding space-time itself." Admiral So Young leaned forward in her holographic display. "Travel time between systems?" "Instantaneous, regardless of distance. A ship could travel from Earth to the galactic core in seconds instead of years." The implications were staggering. Current galactic civilization was limited by travel, times measured in weeks or months even with the fastest alien ships. Instantaneous travel would revolutionize everything from trade to military strategy. Dong Wu raised an obvious concern. "What happens when the galaxy learns we're working on this?" Jin-Ho smiled grimly. "The same thing that happened when we demonstrated stellar engineering, panic followed by desperate attempts to negotiate partnership agreements." Captain Yoonji's voice joined the conversation through the communication system. She was currently surveying the 17 worlds around humanity's artificial star, designated the Prometheus system. "I'm transmitting current survey data from Prometheus 4. The planet is even more suitable for colonization than we initially thought." The main display showed detailed scans of a world covered in blue oceans and green continents. Atmospheric readings indicated breathable air, moderate temperatures, and no hostile native life forms. "The Altarian Republic has offered to establish the first multi-species colony there," Captain Yoonji continued. "They want to demonstrate that peaceful cooperation is possible." Jin-Ho considered this. "What do we think about joint colonies?" Admiral So Young answered first. From a security standpoint, it shows confidence in our ability to maintain peace. If we can make multi-species colonies work, it proves that stellar engineering leads to cooperation rather than conflict. Dr. Minseo nodded agreement. It would also give us opportunities to study how different species adapt to human-created environments. Useful data for future projects. Dongwu pulled up diplomatic files. The Altarian Republic has a good reputation for peaceful cooperation. They've never been involved in aggressive expansion or resource conflicts. Approved, Jinho decided. Let's show the galaxy what's possible when species work together instead of fighting over limited resources. The meeting was interrupted by an urgent communication from Professor J. Wan on Europa. His excited voice filled the office. I need to speak with Dr. Minseo immediately. We've had a breakthrough with the wormhole generators. Dr. Minseo activated her personal communicator. What kind of breakthrough? We've successfully created a stable micro-wormhole in the laboratory. Duration was only 3 seconds, but the spatial distortion was perfect. No radiation leakage, no gravitational disruption. With more exotic matter, we could scale it up to ship-sized portals. Jinho and Dongwu exchanged glances. Humanity was about to change the galaxy again. How long until we can test a full-scale wormhole? Dr. Minseo asked. 6 months for a prototype. Maybe less if we get priority access to exotic matter production. Admiral, So Young looked thoughtful. We should coordinate this with the completion of the Prometheus. Having our stellar engineering ship available when we demonstrate wormhole technology would send a powerful message. Jinho activated the secure communication channel that connected him with human leaders throughout the solar system. All department heads. This is Secretary General Jinho. Initiate planning for Project Prometheus II. Full priority authorization. As the meeting concluded, each leader departed with new, impossible assignments. 6 months ago, humanity had been facing extinction or slavery. Now they were preparing to revolutionize galactic civilization again. Dongwu paused at the office door. Jinho, do you ever wonder what the council members think about all this? Jinho pulled up recent reports from the Alliance Assembly. Commander Tae-young now chairs the Galactic Defense Coordination Committee. He spends his time trying to convince other species to adopt human-designed security protocols. And Chancellor Zincor? She's established the new interspecies trade authority. Every major commercial agreement now goes through her office for approval, but she consults with human economists on all decisions. High Technician Velmars? He's leading the Collaborative Science Initiative. Basically, he coordinates research projects between human scientists and alien researchers. Last week, he requested permission to study our wormhole research. Dongwu shook his head in amazement. The same aliens who wanted to enslave us are now asking for our guidance. Jinho looked out at the stars visible through his office window. Somewhere among those points of light, humanity's artificial star burned steadily, providing warmth and energy to 17 new worlds. Soon, human-created wormholes would connect star systems across the galaxy. They thought we were primitive, children playing with toys, he said quietly. Turns out the children had some very interesting toys. As night fell over Earth, the lights of human cities glowed beneath the stars. In orbital shipyards, construction continued on vessels designed to reshape the galaxy. In hidden laboratories, scientists worked on technologies that would make the impossible merely routine. The Council had found it funny when humanity asked to be treated as equals. 6 months later, they were competing for the privilege of working. With the species they had tried to enslave. Sometimes, Jinho reflected, the universe had an excellent sense of humor.